Welcome back to the show. The Enneagram is a very old personality typing system that's gained more popularity in recent years. Each of the 9 personality types is defined by a particular core belief. I talked to one of the leading Enneagram experts, best-selling author Ian Morgan Cron. In his first book about the Enneagram, it's sold over 1 million copies so far. His latest release, The Story of You, is about letting go of self-sabotage to become what you're meant to be.
So the Enneagram is this uncannily accurate ancient personality typing system that teaches that there are 9 basic personality styles in the world, one of which we gravitate toward and adopt in childhood as a way to cope, to protect ourselves, and to navigate the new world of relationships in which we find ourselves.
What are those 9 personality types?
Let's just do a quick run through. But this, of course, is super brief. I could write 200 pages on each one. So the first one is called the improvers. And these folks are ethical, they're meticulous, they're detail-oriented, and they're morally heroic people who have a need to perfect themselves, others, and the world. Type 2s are called the helpers. These folks are warm, they're supportive, they're giving, and they're motivated by a need to meet the needs of others while not acknowledging their own personal needs. The third is called the performer. These are people who are success-oriented, they're image conscious, they're driven, and they're wired for productivity. They're motivated by a need to succeed, to feel successful, and to avoid failure at all costs. 4s are called the individualists, sometimes the romantics. They're creative, they're sensitive, they can be a little temperamental, and they're motivated by a need to be special and unique. 5s are called the investigators, and these folks are analytical, they're detached, and quite private. They're motivated by a need to gather information and knowledge in order to fend off feelings of inadequacy. 6s are called the loyalists. The loyalists are committed, they're practical, they're witty, they're very earthy, and they're motivated by a need to feel safe, to feel certain and secure in what feels to them like a complicated and overwhelming world. 7s, the enthusiasts, they're the joy bombs of the Enneagram. They're fun, they're spontaneous, they're adventurous. They're motivated by a need to be happy, to avoid painful or distressing feelings, thoughts, or circumstances. 8s, the challengers, they're commanding, they're intense, they're confrontational, and they're motivated by a need to assert strength and control over others and the environment in order to mask vulnerability and weakness. Finally, the peacemakers, pleasant, laid back, accommodating. They're motivated by a need to keep the peace and to avoid conflict.
So as you were explaining them, I was kind of trying to self-place my own personality, although I feel like I ticked on about 8 of the 9. So can you be more than one personality type?
According to the Enneagram, the answer to that question is no. However, you do contain all 9 types. That's very important. So it's only natural that you would identify with more than one. However, one of those types is more like you than the other 8. And so part of the journey of discovering your type is figuring out which one is my default.
So I do a lot of work with my therapist when it comes to my childhood and kind of redefining some of the things that happened to me. And I know it really has a lot to do with who I am now as a person. So how much of our childhood do you believe goes into our personality type?
Well, there's a lot of debate in psychology about this, the nature-nurture debate, right? The answer to the question, is it nature or nurture? The answer is yes, right? It's a bit of both. Of course, childhood trauma will influence the formation of your personality. And also, it's not just parents, it's culture, it's peers, it's coaches, it's our experiences. All of these, greatly influence our personality type's development.
What drew you to the Enneagram, and what role has it played in your life?
I was in graduate school studying to become a psychotherapist, and I went on a trip up into the mountains of Colorado to take a break. I stayed in a monastery, and I was in their library, And I happened upon a book called The Enneagram, and I just picked it up and I couldn't stop reading it because I found it to be so enlightening. And I kept thinking to myself, where has this been in my curriculum? Because it's so accessible and it's something you can act upon immediately. And you don't need a master's or a PhD in psychology to understand it, right? And so, one of the things I've tried to do in my books is make this system accessible to the broader audience, people who don't have time to go deep studying into the Myers-Briggs and other similar systems. And boy, we have just seen an explosive response to our books and to our many products.
This isn't a new system, right? Why do you think it's been growing in popularity over the last few years?
It's funny you should ask that question. I recently was interviewed by one of the largest dating apps in the world.
Really?
Yes. And they said that in recent months, there's been a 35% uptick in people asking about everybody else's Enneagram numbers. Right, on their profiles. So yeah, it's gaining in popularity. I just think that we want to understand other people. We want to know, why is it that we predictably and habitually act, think, and feel the way that we do, so that with that self-understanding, we can just enjoy better relationships, really.
Fascinating stuff.